Now, there is one thing that I want you to remember from configuring credentials in Jenkins, right? As you saw in our examples, we have configured credential for EC2 instance inside Jenkins so we could deploy on EC2 server. And we have also configured Kubernetes credentials as kubeconfig file to connect to Kubernetes cluster. So in case of EC2 server, we have created an SSH credential for EC2 user on that instance, and we have provided the private SSH key of that user. And an alternative for that will be to create a Jenkins user on EC2 server or whatever remote server you're using. And for that Jenkins server, there will be a Linux server on that instance. And for that Jenkins user, basically to create credentials with its private key and not use the EC2 user here. That will be one alternative. Same way here you see we have created Kubernetes credentials using the kubeconfig that the Kubernetes admin user is using. So we basically have all the permissions to execute stuff and configure stuff in Kubernetes. So again, an alternative here would be to create a Jenkins user in Kubernetes. In Kubernetes, users are called service accounts. So basically create a Jenkins service account and give it only the permissions that Jenkins needs, which is basically just deploying a new application, creating deployment kind, service kind, and maybe some other stuff. So for example, if it doesn't need to delete anything or it doesn't need to create other types of components in Kubernetes, you may limit the permissions of the Jenkins service account. And then we would create credential for Jenkins user inside Kubernetes cluster with user token. So that will be an alternative to do that. And it's important to note because this is not the only option to do it, and also because using or creating own dedicated Jenkins users on different services to give Jenkins access to those services is actually one of the best practices.